somebody special. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out today. We're going to call our August 15th meeting to order. Do I have a motion to call the meeting to order?
I'll make a motion to call the meeting to order.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'm going to ask Commissioner Roberts to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. Thank you, Cam. All right, the director is not in the building today, but he is going to be joining in remotely on the meeting. So he is listening and we'll have input. Patrick Levine is in his spot today. I'm going to ask Patrick to lead us in a prayer this morning.
Well, you know, commissioners, when we go to prayer this morning, I was thinking a lot about the people in Maui, and there's a lot of people today that are hurting in our nation, and so want to think about those individuals who you know, they're grieving a lot of loss today. So let's pray. Father, we thank you and we praise you for the opportunity to gather this morning, Lord, to represent your creation, the things that you've given us on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and we say thank you for that. And Lord, help us not to take it lightly, Lord, as we make decisions to try to ensure that the resources you've given us are there for the future. Lord, we ask that you give us wisdom. And Lord, we do take a moment to lift up the people in Hawaii for family members that are hurting. Lord, we ask that you comfort them. Lord, bless this time we have together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have any discussion on the July 18th minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. No changes to the agenda? No changes. All right. Do we have a motion to approve today's agenda as written?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. And as you mentioned, Director Spraggins is online today. Just in case it happens whenever we get started, DFA sent a notification and said that they are working on the fire alarms today. So if in the next few minutes the fire alarms go off, they said do not be startled, nobody panic, it's just a test. And so let's hope it does not happen during the meeting, but it may. And with that said, if you happen to see smoke, exit the building. All right, even though they said it's just a test. So we want to make sure everybody's safe, and they're working on the system this morning. Director Spraggins and Rick Burris are both at Gulf Council this week. We know that Red Snappers closed, that we met the quota, and I know that they're diligently having conversations on what it may look like in the future. So we're thankful for them working on our state's behalf and what they're doing. Lots of things to be done. And so at any minute, be mentally prepared. Director Spraggins, if you have something to share, please do share it with us. I know a lot of folks have been waiting to hear about Bonnie Carey, and I'm thankful to say that we have an update this morning. Tracy, could you give us an update on where we stand on Bonnie Carey?
Good morning. I'm Tracy Floyd. Just want to tell you about Job 1 financial assistance applications for commercial fisheries, seafood dealers, and charter operators opened on August 9th at 8 a.m. and will close after 30 days on September 7th at 11:59 p.m. So we have a brief, streamlined online application on our website. We have a team in fisheries that's available to help anyone who needs that assistance, and just give us a call. We'll walk you through it. Of course, the eligible categories are commercial fisheries, seafood dealers, charter operators. You had to be licensed in 2019, which is the year of the disaster, and you had to have made contributions either by having a license or being in the fisheries the previous 5 years, 2014 through 2018, the historical years prior to the event. So for that application, you will just need your contact information, a valid email address, your date of birth, your social or employer tax ID number, and your applicable license numbers for the year of the disaster and any of those historical license years. And we can help you or anyone who needs help with that. We will, of course, offer an appeals process for anyone found not eligible. And today we've had 159 total applications received, and those are under review.
One question that I've had come in a couple times, I've had a few people ask me what the percentages were between the different sectors. Do we have that out there online anywhere that
That's
they could?
not out there yet. It's my understanding, Director Spraggins has some more decisions to make as we work through it, but obviously part of it will be the number of applicants we have to make it more fair across the board, but then also based on the value of the fishery, those historical years we talked about.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
to you?
ma'am.
Okay.
That'll work. Thank you.
Any
And-
other?
Tracy, where do the processors fit in all this? Because I know that there's like a different application process that's coming online for them. Like, when do you expect to open that up?
So that should be one of our next programs. Our priorities are the financial assistance programs. This is the first one. There will be one for processors, for new grant technologies, and then there'll be one for commercial fishermen or charter fishermen to get their safety gear up to date. And that's all found on the DMR website. If you'd like to read about those future jobs on the Marine Fisheries homepage.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. You know, we want to try to get that money where it's needed and to the hands of the people that are out there working, and do it as quick as we can, for sure. You know, we had a couple employment updates over the last couple weeks. First of all, Brian Hurst is listed as a new hire, maintenance ground supervisor out at the Lyman Fish Hatchery. He's listed as a new hire, but I want to say this. Brian was with the agency for a long time. He retired, and he said, I like working so much, I want to come out of retirement and go back to work. And so that says a lot about the agency and the people he works with. So we welcome Brian back to the agency. For promotions, Laura Moncrief, she was promoted to an Environmental Natural Resources Specialist Supervisor on August 1st, 2023 in Coastal Resource Management. So congratulations to Laura. We do have two contracts. First, we have one with Silver Ships for a Marine Patrol vessel. And then later on in the presentation, I know Travis is going to be talking about reef deployments that are going on, but we have one with NIFWIF and some reef construction that's going on. We're going to hear more about reef construction in the fisheries presentation later today. So that's all we have under employment and contracts. Last month, Director Spraggins mentioned the Neshoba County Fair. And we had the opportunity to go up and do some seafood marketing at the Neshoba County Fair. And we had a reception with One Coast where we were able to let people sample some Gulf Coast flounder, some domestic shrimp, some oysters. We had plenty of food for people to try out, and we set up a booth for Coast Day, and we had over 600 people that came by the Coast booth where we promoted Mississippi Gulf Coast seafood. And so we were doing some seafood marketing promotions, and thank you to everybody that helped make that possible. And it was hot. And, you know, one of the things that we had that we were giving out, you know, I think about Charmaine and Francesca and Rick. They were in the booth, and they had to be the biggest fans at the Neshoba County Fair, you know, literally because they were giving out fans. And whenever you would turn on the fan, it would circulate and it would say shrimp. It would say oysters. It had little LED lights in it. And you were able to see people walking all over the fair promoting Mississippi Gulf Coast seafood. So such a wonderful way to market the resources we have on the coast, and just a good time. And we look forward to the opportunity to maybe do that in the future. Another thing that's coming up between now and the next meeting that we want to encourage everybody to be a part of, on September the 9th, there will be the Biloxi Seafood Festival. And we are thankful for the heritage we have in seafood here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And if you get the opportunity, go down there, order you some seafood plates, walk around the booths, enjoy the music, and we'll be set up promoting the agency and promoting domestic seafood and the wonderful resources we have on the coast. So be sure to do that. I know in the past couple months we've had conversations about the legislation, designating the Dantzler Track in Jackson County over by Indian Point as the Eric Clark Coastal Preserve, and also Big Island being designated as Galata Island, and the point at the end being Godfather Point. We want to be able to recognize those particular areas, and there's a possibility between now and the next meeting you may hear about us unveiling those properties and putting the kiosks out there and having a day. So everybody's welcome to join us. We'll make sure you know about it, make sure the commission knows about it, and if you want to come out and recognize the renaming of those properties and the efforts that individuals put in to be recognized and to be named after, it'll be a great event. So be sure to be looking for that coming up. We're going to be closed on Labor Day, so if you show up here on Monday, September the 4th for work, have fun. It'll be a bonus day for you, but we're going to be closed on Monday, September the 4th for Labor Day. On derelict vessels, it's definitely a program that is continually moving. We've had a total of 117 derelict vessels reported to the program since it started. It's amazing. 73 of those vessels have been removed. 73 of those vessels removed, and an amazing team of individuals that's been working diligently on that. And so thank you to them. We have 44 that are pending removal, 0 that we have court orders for. And I know that the legal staff, they're going to be Stephen. There's no doubt he's like a bulldog on a postman, and he'll be back out there with the courts ready to go on them derelict vessels again. So we'll be very soon looking at removing some more of those vessels that are pending. The last thing.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Patrick. All right, real quick, I just signed something yesterday for $1.9 million to be able to give us federal funds to help remove a derelict vessel.
That's fantastic news. So we, through GOMA, had applied for a NOAA grant for marine debris removal, and we have been awarded $1.9 million to be able to help move those derelict vessels. So thank you to all the team that helped put that together, make that possible. We'll get some more of those vessels out of there. Thank you, Director, for mentioning that. The last thing I want to talk about, last month there was the discussion about the opening on the on-bottom oyster leasing program. We talked about the portal being open, people being able to apply, and we had 80 applications come in. 80 people applied for on-bottom oyster leasing. A couple of those individuals may have put in 2 applications, but I tell you, that is phenomenal that we have that much interest and that many people that want to help rebuild oysters on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. That's good news. I want to take a minute to explain the process, because we've had a lot of people ask, what does the process look like? So those 80 applications that came in, they went through an RFP, a request for proposal. And that request for proposal, it outlined what's going to be required of individuals who are applying to lease those oyster bottoms. It had the criteria. They put in their proposal on how they respond to it. It was submitted to our contract office where all of the names were redacted off of the applications. And so there's been a committee that's been reviewing the applications. It's composed of 2 people from the DMR, 1 person from another agency, and they have individually been scoring each of the applications based on the information that the applicant received in the request for proposal. And everything was online, everything was transparent. They knew what they were applying for, and they said they were able to do X, Y, and Z. So the committee is reviewing those applications. Once they finish reviewing all 80 applications, they're going to rank them in order of score, and then they'll be able to start meeting with individuals and allowing them to lease the property. And so that's the way it's being handled. The committee members do not know who the applicant is. They were given the information, and they're reviewing it based on the information given to them without knowing who applied. And so it's a very equitable, transparent program. Of the 80 applications, all 80 of them have already been redacted. All 80 of the applications are in the hands of the committee. And from what I've been told, they're probably somewhere a little over 50% complete with the process. And so hopefully in the next few days, I know in due course we'll be able to meet with those individuals, because we want people to be able to start getting building reef as quick as we can. We know that the Gulf Coast needs it, and so we're excited about that.
Just a question I've got on that. If this process goes smoothly and I mean, is there any possibility that they would potentially be able to start working those reefs as early as sometime this year, or?
Well, when you define the possibility of working that reef, for them to be able to culch and plant and get out there working the reef, the goal is to allow them the opportunity to be out there this year.
Good.
Great. Patrick, do you foresee another window of applications being another round coming soon? Or?
Well, like I said, we have 80 applicants, and each applicant's allowed 2,500 acres. I personally don't know how much acreage each applicant applied for. I'm not on the committee, but if there are some permitted bottoms that are still out there, I would expect that once the dust settles and this first round goes through, that if there's still some more out there to be leased, I would think by all means we can expect a second round.
And are they applying for a specific area, or we're assigning the areas to them?
So no, what they're doing is they are applying for a specific area. Inside of the RFP, they have to give us the coordinates, and they have to provide a plat of the particular permitted reef that they're interested in leasing. So they are determining the property that they want.
So theoretically, we could have 80 applicants for the same
We could.
area?
We could, and once the committee finishes reviewing, what's going to happen is it's going to go to our GIS department. Our GIS department is going to take all 80 applications. They're going to create a map with overlays to see where that overlay exists, and then start sorting the mail with the applicants based on how they rank in the RFP.
And then, okay, so once they're done with that, if we have some applicants that have applied for the same area, are we then able to go back to them and say, okay, you didn't get this area, but we have this area over here available to them?
Jason, you want to step up for just a second? Did you get that question?
Yes. Good morning, first off. Thank y'all. But yes, that's our intention, is to work with the applicants. If the first application has an area that is leased, applicants after that, they will look at a map that's available at that point and then determine what they would like to lease moving forward.
So just of this area, the 2,500 acre, you said 2,500 acres, so that's accurate, for one application, up to?
Up to 2,500 acres, yes.
How many, if everybody asked for 2,500 acres, how many leases would we have?
How many total acres do we have available?
If each applicant asks for 2,500 acres, we'd have less than about 10 leases, approximately.
We don't know how many, I mean, how much they've asked for in each.
I do not, I'm not aware of what each person asked for. 2,500 acres is a large amount, and the requirements associated with them, they have to cultivate and manage those reefs accordingly. So if they get 2,500 acres, they're going to have to put out a lot of money and a lot of time to develop those acreages, that acreage.
Gotcha.
Or do we have a hand, who determines when that reef is harvestable? You know, I know whenever we were controlling the reefs, we would open and close seasons.
So the harvester or the leasee will determine when and how they want to harvest that lease, but the DMR will maintain area classification and open and close according to the NSSP guidelines. So we still maintain that control.
Okay.
Last question. I should have looked at this at the last meeting, but the area around St. Stanislaus,
Mhm.
because I know they do some oyster bed work there. Is that included in this, or is that separate?
So part of Stanislaus Reef is included in this outside of the riparian rights zone. Are you talking about St. Stanislaus School specifically? So they have an oyster gardening program that is not affected with this,
Okay.
this leasing
All right.
process. Yes.
Very good.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jason, for addressing those comments. But we are excited to see what's going to happen. You know, I know that the Off Bottom Aquaculture Park, it's been a beauty to see those oysters coming in. But man, how nice will it be when we start seeing oysters hit the dock again? And that's what we're hoping for and look forward to in the future. If you have a public comment today, TJ's back in the back. TJ, raise your hand. He's back in the back. You can get a public comment form to him. And so thank you. That's all I have.
All right. We appreciate it. Director, you don't have anything else?
No, I'm fine. Thank y'all.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have anything for our commissioners to report today?
We have actions update.
Oh,
Yeah,
we didn't. I'm sorry. We jumped the gun. Actions update.
At the July meeting, the commission recommended and the director approved a motion to approve the requested variance and permit to be issued to the MDMR for a beneficial use site. They're going to fill approximately 660 acres of coastal wetlands in the Mississippi Sound on the southeastern side of Cat Island. Also, Ronnie Daniels was elected as chairperson and Cam Roberts was elected as vice chair for the FY 2024 period. And we had approval of state saltwater finfish records, conventional tackle white-bone porgy, yellowtail snapper, youth conventional tackle for rockhind, red snapper, Spanish mackerel, and crevalle jack. And there was also a motion to approve the procedures developed by MDMR staff to accept requests for proposals for the on-bottom oyster leasing in accordance with Senate Bill 2544 and the recent changes to Title 22 Part 1 to conform to the Senate Bill 2544 requirements. And that's it.
Thank you, Miss Sandy.
You're welcome.
Now, commissioners report.
Sorry. So just want to give you an update on what's going on in the domestic shrimp industry here. Prices are just about the lowest that I've seen them in the last 20 years. Give you an example. A fisherman comes up to the dock, 26.30 head-on shrimp. He's getting 75 cents a pound. Last time that I've seen that, fuel was about $1.50 a gallon. It's running about $3.25 right now. You know, and even if they do come back with a boatload of shrimp, these guys are running into processing backlogs. Processors are running into cold storage issues. So, you know, we appreciate everything that everybody has done at the DMR from a marketing perspective to turn around and get this Bonnie Carey money turned out for them so fast. But, you know, I mean, the people of Mississippi can make a difference. So I think that there's enough shrimp processed right here in this state to get every man, woman, and child in this state 10 pounds of shrimp a year. So, right now we're running about 5 or 6% of the total market. So, you know, roughly 95% of the shrimp that's consumed in this country come from overseas. So it really doesn't take much for a state like Mississippi or a state like Louisiana to keep moving the needle for everybody. So, keep asking for domestic shrimp, support your local shrimpers, and my thanks again to everybody at the DMR for their continued support.
Hey, Commissioners, it's Joe Spraggins. Hey, could you, is it the price of the imported shrimp that's causing us the issue there? Because of the, you only being able to pay like 75 cents a pound for the domestic shrimp? Is it because of the low price of imported?
So the landings in the Gulf of Mexico last year were about 100 million pounds. The imports into the country ran about 1.7 billion pounds. So you see the total demand, the forecasted demand is somewhere a little bit below 1.5 billion pounds. So last year, the flood of imports, was due to a lot of things, the devalue of the dollar, weak demand from China, stringent testing in other countries. So, a lot of that product just flooded over here to the market, and they continue, even at these prices, they're continually underselling the domestic industry. A lot of these foreign governments are offering assistance to the shrimp farmers. And, it's not only like in the domestic industry, like you're not really competing against each other. Like you're competing, we've got domestic industries who are competing against foreign governments. And that's what makes it so tough.
Yeah, it's something we need to look by legislators more about, and the possibility of, having our restaurants and others to look at possibility of saying that if they do serve domestic shrimp, or then at least they put it on the menu that way. If not, that it's imported. I know it's happened in Louisiana, and it might be something we need to look at.
It is, from what I'd seen from Louisiana. I think Louisiana, there's an article stating that they had 2,500 violations of that law, and that's just coming from the health inspectors, but they've had 0 fines. So I think that, while the law is good, the enforcement of it is severely lacking. And, I travel all around the country. I see a lot of restaurants, a lot of menus, representing things as the product of the United States or Gulf or local caught, is a prevailing problem no matter where you go. But like I mentioned, it really doesn't take, just a few Gulf states to get in on this thing and turn the tide.
And I was talking to Louisiana yesterday, and they have given more money to be able to enforce some of that, and maybe enforce some more fines. So they're optimistic as to whether that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. We got anything else? All right. Office of Marine Patrol, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. Legal Director. I'm going to let Captain Strickland go over the citation report. It was an extremely busy month last month. Very hot. Our people and everybody else in general. We have to stay hydrated out there. We have to stay safe, and we have to mitigate this heat until we can make fall. All right. So, Captain Strickland, go ahead with the citation report.
All right. Thank you. Good morning. As Colonel Wilkerson stated, July was a very busy month for us. The Office of Marine Patrol, one of the reasons that it was a busier month, we were blessed with good weather. I know it's been hot, but for recreational boating, it was a superb month. Also, we had red snapper season open during that time frame, but the big thing is that our agency participates in a national campaign called Operation Dry Water every year. That campaign is a national awareness campaign to bring a sense of heightened awareness to operating vessels on the water under the influence of alcohol. During the month of July in Operation Dry Water, the Office of Marine Patrol affected 15 boating under the influence arrests, with another 6 negligent operations involving alcohol. So very busy. Guys were very diligent in removing, identifying these people and removing them from operating a vessel, and ultimately preserving safety and human life. So we totaled a little over 3,500 vessel contacts for the month of July. So that's 3,500 people that we stopped, talked to, and part of that campaign is also educating the public on the dangers of operating a vessel under the influence of alcohol. So it's not only a detection, but it's also an education process. So we had 3,500 stops where we talked to people and brought them aware of it. So, questions? Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Coastal Resources Management. It looks like we're gonna have Will up.
Good morning. I have one presentation this morning from our office. It is a violation and after the fact exclusion for Jay Rubenstein. This was some piers built out of compliance and does not meet the general permit guidelines, but it does qualify under a certificate of exclusion from our office. It's located at 6201 Porto Road in Ocean Springs. It's in the general use district. The agent was Doug DeLuca for the original general permit that was issued, and Doug DeLuca and On the Water LLC for the current after the fact application. So this is a pin showing the location of the address. This is, okay, this pointer's working really weird. This is Washington in Ocean Springs. This is Old Fort Bayou, and the property is over here. Oops. Okay, this is a close-up of the actual parcel property before the construction of the current structures. So the applicant is requesting after the fact approval for some existing piers that were constructed out of compliance with the issued general permit. On June 10th, 2021, the applicant submitted the original application for reconstruction of piers within the existing footprint of those derelict piers that you saw in the aerial photo. On July 16th, that permit was issued as proposed. This was the diagram that they submitted showing the existing access pier, excuse me, out to the structures, a rectangular structure at the end, and then over to the left, this L-shaped uncovered boat slip area. On April 18th of 2023, DMR was informed of a possible violation at the address, performed a site visit that showed that several of the piers were constructed out of compliance with what was issued for those terminal structures, and some were constructed in another location without any authorization. On April 19th, the next day, we sent notice of violation, notified the applicant and the agent of the non-compliance issue. And this is a diagram of the structures. You've got the terminal structure out here at the end of the existing access pier. It was built larger than what was permitted. And then you've got piers down here along the bulkhead that were not included in the permit at all. This the dimensions are a little bit different than what we got on our final measurement, but I couldn't remove those. The green shows an estimation of what was permitted. The yellow is the existing access pier, and the red shows an estimation of the piers that were constructed either out of compliance with what was issued or with no authorization at all. It's a picture of the site showing the construction. It's not complete. They stopped work once we notified them of the compliance issues. This is a picture from the shoreline showing out across the access pier to the terminal structure. On April 20th, which was one day after we notified them of the compliance issue, we did receive requests for after-the-fact authorization for the piers as they were constructed. On April 21st, the next day, we did send that out to all of the other coastal program agencies, the Secretary of State's office, and the Army Corps of Engineers, because the square footage was such that it no longer qualified for a general permit. We could not authorize it on behalf of the Corps of Engineers. So they are looking at this for a separate certification. We've looked at this, and because the existing piers would have been eligible for a certificate of exclusion if they had been applied for properly, they don't fall outside of any kind of precedent that's set with square footage. We do recommend approval for the piers as constructed. And if you have any questions, I can answer what I can, and representatives from On the Water LLC are also here.
So how long, I mean, it looks like they applied for this permit in 21.
Yes, sir.
How long is that permit valid?
It was valid until May of 2023.
So they started construction right before, I mean, a month or two before the permit was.
Shortly before.
I guess the biggest question I always have with these is, why are you building something that wasn't originally permitted? Why the change after the fact without following the proper channels to get the proper authorization on what you're building? I mean, whenever we're building something, there's a set of plans and we build to those plans, and if there's changes, you deal with those changes. I just don't understand.
Good morning, Commissioners, Director, Council. My name is Austin Clark. I represent the contractors DeLuca and On the Water. I do not represent Mr. Rubenstein, the owner, but my clients are Mr. Rubenstein's agent, so I can speak on their behalf, but I'll let my client answer your question.
Can you repeat your question, please?
What, I guess what I'm trying to get at, you submitted a plan for one thing,
Correct.
but we ended up with something totally different. How does that happen?
Well,
And why does that happen?
it basically happened because, number one, while we were out there building that project, there were certain days that I was not on that job site. And at the request of the homeowner or the property owner, there were some changes that were made. And when I came out to the job site, those pilings had already been slightly wider than what the original position should have been, which I know that falls back on me. And we chose to move forward with that project at that point in time because the pilings were already there in the ground. So that is how it ended up being slightly larger than what it had intended to be. I think the access pier is included in the total square footage, though, for the permitting process. I could.
No, sir. The access pier is not counted to whether it qualifies for a general permit or not. And the measurements that I presented were done in Mr. DeLuca's presence by the Corps of Engineers. Since we issue the general permits on their behalf, we asked them to come to the site to determine whether it qualified or not. They said that it did not. They gave us the square footage of 24, I'd have to go back to my diagram, 2466, I think, and stated that it did not qualify for a general permit, so we couldn't issue it on their behalf. I did notify Mr. DeLuca and his attorney that if they had different measurements by an engineer, they indicated that they did. I asked them to submit those. Those were never submitted. And I stated that in order for us to issue a general permit on behalf of the Corps after the fact, we would have to have a statement from the Corps of Engineers that it did qualify for a general permit, because as of right now, their statement is that it does not.
Okay. So then I have I guess a couple problems here. One is that you're asking us to approve a permit after the fact based on a 2,467 square foot footprint, but yet you're giving us something that says it's less than 2,000 square feet. So what is the permit that we're actually approving that you want us to approve?
Do we have the ability to verify that?
Okay, because then here's the problem. If we're approving you for what's on our agenda today for 2,467, that puts you over the 2,000. You then have to go to the Corps to get their approval on it. So then if we've given the approval for 2,467, then the Corps is going to look at that and say, hey, then we need to come out and do our own measurements on that. So
Well, and that's what I was about to ask. This is the first time you've seen this, Willa?
Yes, sir. We can verify measurements again, but I got 2466, I think, and the Corps got 2467. We actually were less than half a square foot off. They carried theirs out to like 3 decimal points, measured precisely to the inch. Some of mine was based on estimation, but we were still less than half a square foot off on the total square footage between the measurements. They did not include the access pier. Chris Pickering is the project manager for the Corps, and he sent me an email and specifically stated that he excluded the access pier square footage from his total.
because that's existing. All right. So, I mean, I guess based on what I'm hearing then is we may not want to approve this today, and we may want to shelve it because it's certainly, well, you need time to look at this and verify if this is accurate.
Need time to verify. We need time to check with the Corps about what the official square footage that they are going to accept. Because at this point, it doesn't matter what we approve, even if the commission and the director decided to approve it at the 1,900 square feet, I still can't issue a general permit on behalf of the Corps because I have a statement from them stating that it does not qualify.
Is there a reason that there aren't any measurements on here or dimensions of the boathouse or?
Yeah, I would imagine that you would have to have that mapped out because there's no measurements on anything on the boat, I mean, on the dock, the pier, whatever. But there are plenty of measurements on the application that we're looking at right here. Yeah, and then I also, I mean, look, I just got on this commission last month, right? But in 2 months, I've seen your name twice, and I understand there's 3 times. And it concerns me that your statement that the original plan was going forward and you weren't on site, and then all of a sudden you came back and, oh, gee, the piers are longer. Is that what happened on the other two? Because you're not helping your case much if you're like coming in here and saying that it happened without your knowledge.
No, the other two, that is not what happened at all. Number one, the first one that we had received a violation on and a stop work order, which we shut down our equipment, was for a resident in Fort Bayou, which the portal said the permit was issued as proposed. But our job was shut down and we were told that we had to move our equipment, and did not go finish that job. So we relocated, but the portal said that the permit had been issued, and our client and I were notified that it had not. So, okay. This particular site here, we've had visits from the agency that came out, and they notified us that probably the peak of the roof, from what they gathered by the boat, they came up and visited us, which you were not informed of that. But they said the roof might be too high. We realized that it was 25 feet is the max that you can be at, depending on the tide. So we went ahead and deconstructed several of the joists, lowering the roof 3 feet to be well within the compliance of the elevation, the overall height. As far as that, they also came and visited the site, tied the boat up to the pier and walked through the property, and nothing was said of any violations at that point in time. So we figured that everything was okay.
Right, and I'm not trying to relitigate the other two. I'm just saying my
No, sir, I
perception
understand.
is
Yes, sir.
like this seems to be a recurring problem, right? And it's causing a lot of issues for the staff to have to come out and continually redo this. And I know last month we had tabled this because there was new information coming in. Is that right? Well, and now the night before you come up with this. We want to be sympathetic, and I mean, you've already constructed the thing. I'm sure there's some constraints the owner is putting on you.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, moving forward, you got to work with us a little bit better, quite frankly. I mean, it's
And I totally accept that responsibility. I do. And we want to move forward within the agency who has, they're very beneficial to us as contractors. And we rely on them. So, when things like this occur, I accept that responsibility. So if it is a fact of what we need to do forward from here, I'm amicable to whatever is necessary to make it go forward.
Well, are you agreeable in tabling this one more time so y'all can take a look at this new information, or?
Yes, sir. That's fine. Another thing about the Marine Patrol visit, I did check with Officer Strickland, and he has no record, and checked with his staff, I believe, and they have no record of stopping by. So we don't know who that was that stopped by and discussed the height.
They don't
of
do
it.
measurements or anything like that anyhow, correct?
Typically not. Typically they forward it to us if they have any kind of complaint or question, and we go and investigate.
Well, I think at this point, the best way to move forward is let's just go ahead and table this thing again, let the staff review what y'all have submitted. I personally would like to see something with some dimensions on the actual boathouse and the piers other than just a number.
Can we also get the commission to request a deadline for when those dimensions have to be submitted because
What would be your
the month
preference?
before it was pulled off at the last minute because we got information at the last minute, and now we're getting information at the meeting that I had requested at least 2 weeks ago.
So that that would be my next question. How much time do you need to review it before the next meeting? Would 10 days give
At
you
least
enough?
2 weeks ahead. We set the agenda approximately 10 days prior to the meeting. So if we could have it 14 days prior to that, that would give us several days to look at it and
Okay,
review.
so
Actually, that would put us into the week to like 2 of those days would be weekend days. So
August 29th would put us at 2 weeks prior to the next meeting. From this meeting?
But our issue isn't the Corps. The Corps relies on us I mean, the Corps will look at what we decide to do. So they can continue doing what they're doing, but in terms of what we and our staff need to do, like I think the 29th is applicable. And at least from my perspective, if it's not in by that time, like I'm not prepared to support an application at the next meeting unless everything's in on time. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous if we're getting information the day before or even the night before, and you're asking us to make a decision on this.
Well, here's the other thing too. I'd like to see them get it sooner than later, be able to look at it. If you'll get it to them, if they don't get done, that's fine. We don't have to put it on the agenda for next month. We can move it one more month without having to bring everybody back in here. But let's go ahead and get them the information that they need as quickly as possible. That way they can look into it, and if we're ready for it on the next meeting, we'll add it back to the agenda. Okay,
And then lastly, for the record, just if you look at the measurements there on that screen, it does not include the existing pier in those measurements. If you add up the totals of all the measurements on there, that's 2,467 square feet. Okay, well, I'm just telling you, if you map it out, that is
Okay.
what the measurements are.
Well, let's get it all in, and let's let staff review it. I'll make the motion to table this until we bring it back, after the staff has had time to review it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Willa.
thank you.
Thanks, Willow.
Jonathan.
Jason or Jonathan?
All right, Finance and Administration, Miss Leslie.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm presenting the financials for the end of July, July 31st, 2023. At the end of the month, our state revenue was $3 million. Our agency revenue was also $3 million. Our state net income was 2.7, and agency net income was 2.5. After 1 month of our new fiscal year, we have 99.8% of our budget remaining for operating funds and Tidelands. We have 99.5%. Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, Miss Charmaine.
Good morning. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources had 10 media mentions since the July MACMR meeting. News items included the announcement of Commissioner Osborne to the MACMR, the opening of proposals for on-bottom molluscan shellfish leases, and financial assistance applications being accepted for the 2019 Mississippi Bonnie Carey Spillway Fisheries Disaster Recovery Program. The Office of Marine Patrol took part in the City of Gulfport turning 125 years old celebration on July 29th, and the National Night Out Against Crime with the City of Moss Point on August 1st. Rick Burris gave an agency presentation to the Biloxi Lions Club on August 2nd at the Maritime and Seafood Industry Museum. The third class of the 2023-2024 Off-Bottom Oyster Aquaculture Training Program was held on July 29th at the Bolton Building and the Biloxi Small Craft Harbor with 18 participants. Shellfish Bureau staff gave a presentation on marketing and branding strategies, distribution tactics,
Permitting 101 and oyster tumbling operations. The staff of Eagle Point Oyster Company followed with a workshop where participants received hands-on training on the tumbling process of seed size and market size oysters and provided the class with aquaculture tips and tricks. MDMR staff participated at One Coast Day at the Neshoba County Fair. On July 26, we fed Gulf Fresh Mississippi seafood to an estimated 600 guests. We also promoted the Mississippi Seafood Program with a booth featuring promotional materials the morning of July 27th. We had approximately 500 visitors to our booth that morning, and many agencies and organizations from the Gulf Coast attended One Coast Day to promote everything our coast has to offer. And we will be at the Biloxi Seafood Festival in the Biloxi Town Green on Saturday, September 9th, if anyone would like to stop by our booth and visit us. All right, thanks.
Oh, I didn't have that on. Bear with me. Excuse me just one second. All right. Where are we at? Marine fisheries. Artificial reef update.
Good morning, Patrick, Commissioners, Legal. I'm not Travis, I'm Courtney, doing the artificial reef update. I just have a brief presentation on some recent projects that we have going on. Our first one is Nifwif Barrier Island Reef Project. This is a project that is, we used EcoDiscs as our structures, and we deployed 860 reef modules on FH8, 9/11, 10, and Cat Island. These deployments took a total of 4 days, April 18th and 19th. We deployed about half of them, and then again on July 17th and 18th for the remainder. These are constructed of Florida limestone on a pedestal that's made of a concrete base with rebar. As you can see here, these are the units that we deployed. This design was specifically chosen because of the rings. It creates a space for these juvenile fishes for habitat protection and for foraging opportunities. On Fish Haven 8, we deployed 200 units. Fish Haven 9/11, 215 units. Fish Haven 10, 210 units. And on Cat Island, 235 units, all in a water depth of 12 to 18 feet. This project, now that the construction phase is over, it'll start monitoring in March of next year for 2 years. This is some pictures from the recent deployments. As you can see, each structure is going to be individually picked up and placed on the bottom. We want them all to be vertical and standing. DMR, in conjunction with the Mississippi Gulf Fishing Banks and Omega Protein, also deployed 2 retired fishing vessels. The first one was Mermental, which is a 149 fishing vessel built in 1989. We deployed this one on July 26th in 90 feet of water on Fish Haven 13. These are some pictures from the recent deployment. We also deployed GP Chauvin, which was a 147 feet long fishing vessel built in 1989. It was deployed the next day on July 27th, and it's also located on Fish Haven 13 in 90 feet of water. And this is some pictures from that deployment as well. This is drone footage provided by our IT department. As you can see here, the contractor is already detached from the vessel. We have the bow anchored. The stern is already filled with water. The hatches were removed. All plastics, oil-based products, everything removed from the boat. The intent here is you want the boat to land upright on the bottom. So filling the stern full of water first helps this. And this deployment with the water flooding and everything only took about 30 minutes for it to sink. And after each vessel was deployed, Artificial Reef staff side scanned over it, and got the coordinates for each vessel.
Yeah, that looks good.
And here is a map of just some of the locations that I discussed, the eco discs that went on the Cat Island in FH 8, 9, 11, and 10, and then the fishing vessels that were deployed on Fish Haven 13. Any questions?
Great work. That's exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner, this is Joe too. I would like to thank Fishing Bank and Omega for helping us with this and being able to put those two big boats out there. This is a big deal for us.
Yes, absolutely, Joe. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna back up just a little bit here. I would like to amend my motion that I made a few minutes ago on the permit. I left a part off there, so I'd like to amend the motion to add the August 29th date of when the documentation, the additional documentation needs to be submitted to our staff. Is that good? Okay. Do we have a second? All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Daniels,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe that the DeLucas left.
Their attorney came back in.
Okay, we just want to be sure want to be sure that communication's clear. So we will send that to them in writing and also an email as well, just so there's not any confusion.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you coming back in. All right. Rody Arms must not be fishing. We don't have any records this month. Hope you're getting sick. All right. Do we have any other business?
No, I just had a question about, given the fires that have gone on this last week, have there been any sort of damage or anything affecting?
So we do have the Grand Bayou Coastal Preserve that is adjacent to Buccaneer State Park. We had about 32.5 acres of state property that were burned during that fire. We did not have any structures on the site, so there were no kiosks or lookouts or anything like that, so there was no significant damage. Our staff was able to go out the day after and make sure that, it wasn't anything where there were any safety issues. With the fires that we had in Hancock County over the weekend, there was not any state property that was affected. Most of our property in that area is to the east and the south of I-10 and at the Bay St. Louis exit. So we are hopeful that, the wildfires will stay contained. I know the Forestry Commission has been out doing a lot over the last couple of days. I think their estimation is between 1,400 and 1,500 acres have been burned. But at this point, the only thing that we have seen with the recent fires has been the Grand Bayou Preserve that is adjacent to Buccaneer State Park. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. Public comments. We've got one public comment today, Mr. Clarence Seymour, talking about cobia. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Executive Director Spraggins. Clarence Seymour, Charter Boat SYL, Biloxi, Mississippi, federally permitted, also a charter guide state, and also a private angler of the state of Mississippi for quite a long time. My discussion today on cobia is the state regulations. It concerns me with 2 per person considered by the federal regulations to one, two per boat. So I did my research before I came here. So Texas bag limit is 2 at 40 inches, and I didn't say if it was fork or total length. Florida is 1 per person or 2 per vessel, and Louisiana is 2 per boat, 36 inches fork, and Alabama and Mississippi have the same regulations, 2 per person, 33 inches to the fork. Years ago, this is about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a public comment with the Gulf Council about when they started the regulations of going to 2 per boat, and we was concerned about raising the length to 33 inches. I mean, 33 to 36 inches to the fork because of a lot of private anglers are new to the Gulf and such as, and see a cobia, they act like they seen the boogeyman, and it would be best to have a nice net to be able to put a 36-inch fork cobia in, because they're really hard to judge. So that was my concerns of sticking a gaff in something that you have to throw back. And that's one thing I hate about any type of throwback rules is any type of injury and not placing them correctly back into the Gulf. So my recommendation would be that we may go to public comment about the guideline change or regulations. I know this staff could. I spoke to Mr. Daniels about it a couple times, and I reached out to Marty Wilson's group, One Gulf, and Kyle Johnson with the CCA. I never got a response back to him to see how the Mississippi CCA felt about this idea, but I would think that maybe we could get it out to put it out to the public and see what the private anglers in Mississippi think, and maybe some charter guides and such as. But 2 fish per person in my career of 35 plus years of running 100 miles back and forth in the Gulf, we killed a lot of cobia in a day. And I don't see near the amount of fish that there is today. And I'm worried about preserving for all future of our younger anglers that's going to enjoy the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi Sound and the state adjacent waters. My career in cobia fishing, I've won 3 cobia tournaments in the past 25, 30 years at Gorham Flows, several other events, placed first, second, third, and all. I've been fishing my whole life, so I'd like to see the heyday come back of the 90s and the 2000s, and then we started getting decline, which I'm sure that the other states, they pulled our oil rigs up. So there's a lot involved in this whole cobia deal, which public testimony goes a long ways in the last 4 or 5 years on at the Gulf Council level is the reason they went to, 2 fish per boat, which we went to the podium and asked for it as a federal for hire fleet, basically. So, and the other thing I have is just I appreciate y'all doing what you do, and Director Spraggins, thanks for all the good hard work he does, and that's all I got. Any questions?
I've got one for you, Clarence. So I mean, what would your proposal be? Are you wanting to see in line with what the federal regs are, or maybe a lesser change by the state, just coming off of that many per boat? Or
I'm for the 2 per boat. Here lately, I've limited out. I don't know. I'd say 3 times this summer back in June. We had a really good run of cobia by the shrimp boats while we were snapper fishing. So I refused to take the state limit because some fish were in state boundary, but I'm a self-regulator and conservationist on that item. But by the time you clean 2 keeper cobia now, it's about 20 pounds. I think you can yield 10 pounds of fillet out of a 20-pound cobia cleaned properly by a professional. But I think that 2 per boat at baby steps, and we can always, there's not a lot of regulations that go backwards, but as more stock assessments come back in and people come back and say, man, the cobias are great. We had a great spring run. We got a good fall run. They're all over the buoys in October. They're out at Chandelier again, and they're on the outside of Horn Island. So you know, and not everybody wants to hear regulation changes at all, and that's the main thing that concerns me, that we're gonna get this lead back. But we have 3 states that's in regulations with the federal government, and my charter boat captains in Alabama, I haven't really spoke to them about that because they've been pretty bowed up about it. But
Well, I know it's a subject a lot of people are talking about. I've been getting some phone calls about it as well. Trevor, did you want to touch on anything here?
I mean, this is certainly the expert in the room here beside me on it. So I think what he's proposed, as far as putting a presentation together and at least presenting the background of the regulatory changes and all that stuff over the last few years, I think is apt. So we've got the 36-inch. We can comply with that change a couple years ago. Texas, it's not on their books yet, but they've proposed one. They're going to 1 fish per person and a max. It's going to be a max of 6. And there's our total length. They do everything in total length over there. And then the other thing I'll bring up is has caused confusion with our anglers. Around the time of the March tournaments, we started getting calls, April, everything else like that. As soon as everyone started planning out their tournaments, everyone was kind of asking the difference between the state and federal regulations. And, you know, it spurred between snapper season and everything else. I think it'd be good to get it out there in the open. The other part of it, Clarence made the point. When you make, especially on the federal side, when strong regulatory decisions are made, large steps from was 2 per person down to 1 per person, 2 per vessel, it's not often that we have discussions about bringing that back. We don't ever talk about increasing ACLs or lowering size limits or increasing bag limits too often. So there is a little bit of hesitance on that end to make such a large scale change, but I think it'd be good to provide options, have the public be able to come and provide comment. Let's hear it and kind of get that moving in that direction.
I was just going to say, you know, from a recreational perspective, I mean, that's the talk every, you know, in the spring of every year, you know, are we going to get cobia? Because the reduction for us is real. I mean, it's noticeable. So I would agree with Mr. Clarence. Now, he does have many, many years on me, so he was probably catching them way before I was. But
Anything? So what I'm hearing, I guess we could make a motion to ask y'all to take a look at this and bring it back to us in next month or the month after.
Yeah, I think next month will be fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd be happy to make that motion to ask the staff to put together information on cobia, potential
I think,
changes.
Yeah. So background, the cobia regulatory changes, the background of it over the last 5 or 6 years, and then we'll come back with, you know, a suite of options to consider.
Okay.
One of those being status quo in the middle, and then current federal compliance. I think that would be a good place to start.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clarence. No, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're going to talk about cobia.
Sounds good.
I think that about winds us up. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Well, I'll make it. Second?
Second.
Y'all have a great day.